When you asked originally about what inspired the Turn a Frown Around Foundation, and the truth of the matter is, it just came out of my own pain. Without going too much into detail, but I tell the joke that I'm so bipolar, I should have been an elevator operator. I go up and down, up and down. But I didn't know I was bipolar until I was 42. And I lived the insidious life. I was the guy that would stay up for a week, literally, and then knock it out of bed for 2 months. They am classified as classic bipolar. And so it was horrific. And, growing up, my mom was very, very ill. My daddy died in my arms at age 12. I was molested for a year and a half by a camp counselor. As an adult, I've had 3 failed businesses. I'd always build the business when I was hypomanic to manic, and then it was like building a house. I'd be all excited, and then I just threw lighter fluid all over it when I went into a depression, and I watched it drop. And I've had 3 failed businesses, 2 failed marriages. I've been homeless 4 times, which is really a bizarre lifestyle. But the only good thing about all of this, in case you guys are feeling bad for me, I'm on so much medication, I'm opening my own pharmacy. So, really, there's good to everything, But before I just want to tell a story that I normally in my shows tell before I go my hard luck story. And I love telling this because we go throughout the state. Turn a Frown Around Foundation does 2 things. We go throughout the state doing what we call motivational, inspirational, therapeutic entertainment, and then we go around doing everything we can to end loneliness. So when I'm doing these shows, I always tell people that if I can bring happiness to somebody, that's great. But like a good meal, it's going to pass in a day. But if I can put hope and healing in that happiness, I'm giving somebody that's in a nursing home that's at their final stop, or in a long-term care in a psychiatric ward or a cancer thing, I'm giving them something of hope that they can take with them for the rest of their life. So we teach principles on how to be happy when you're not, because it's easy to be happy when you are. But if you can learn how to be happy when you're not, you'll always be happy. You'll learn to live in the eye of the hurricane. If everyone can live in the eye of the hurricane, it doesn't matter what's going on. You transcend that. It's not until you accept whatever it is. You lost 2 legs, you got cancer, you got mental illness, whatever it is. Everyone's got something. Someone committed suicide that was in your family. Everybody's got something. So until you embrace it, when you embrace it, then you can manage it. And if you can manage it, you can go from bitterness to better, to go from being bitter to going to being better. So this is just my story, and I think in reality that's what I chose to do with my mental illness, is to go from bitter to better. And what ultimately happened is my daughter, who is the greatest kid on the planet, they just don't get any better. I'm very, very lucky. If anybody's watching this and you've seen the movie I Am Sam, have any of you seen I Am Sam? Okay. In reality, 40% of that movie is my daughter and I. She'd come home and see me beating the shit out of myself because I was in such a depression, I didn't know what was wrong with me, and etc. So, but she just loves me and has helped me and whatever endlessly. So when I attempted suicide the second time, she came to me a little sterner than normal and said, Daddy, you got to stop this. You got to take suicide off the table. And I started arguing with her, and I said, no, I'm not doing this. You don't know what my life is like. I'm out of here. She goes, Daddy, you're selfish. I said, I'm selfish? You're selfish. You know what the kind of life I live? Do you know what it is to be a nothing, to be crap, to accomplish nothing, to be up and down and whatever? And she turned around and said, Daddy, you're selfish because you're going to take the very thing that gives me sustenance away because you won't fight hard enough to have victory, at least into managing the illness. And we've argued back and forth. And ultimately, my daughter won. She won. And for the first time since I was age 14, I took suicide off the table. I always wanted to die. My dad, who over 40 years, he's not my daddy, but my stepdad, I guess, I don't like using that word. He told me just recently that when he came into the house, he found a poem that I had written, he thinks, when I was 10, and he went to my mom and said, Florence, you got to get help for your son. He wants to kill himself. So I didn't understand this. But once I burnt the bridge to suicide, I promised my daughter, if I promised anybody else watching here, I would have gone back on it. But I couldn't go back on it because it was my daughter. So the irony of the thing is about a month later, I went into a horrible depression. I was in this hole in the wall. I wouldn't leave the room. I wouldn't shower, shave, and I'm sorry for being so graphic, but I'd sit at this little table and pretend to slit my wrists all day long. And I was yelling and screaming at the top of my lungs at my daughter for making me make this commitment that I can't commit suicide, and I was furious. But about 6 weeks later, that's what happens with bipolars, the sun started coming out. And once it started coming out, I said, if I got to stay on this earth, I got to figure out, like if I got to stay here, I want to increase the quality of my life. I got to figure something out. And so I decided to get into comedy to deal with the surfboard it was a surfboard of dealing with the waves of mania and depression. And and as I got into comedy, I did it for about a year, and I was actually pretty good. I was so quirky, they didn't know what to do with me. You know, it was like, all the clubs, they have like RX, and I get up there like Romper Room. It was just a unique break, you know. The kindergarten kid is doing comedy now. And I don't mean this to sound holier than thou, I don't. But knowing where I had come from, and I'm in these clubs, and I just said to myself, the guy in the third martini just does not need to laugh anywhere as somebody in a nursing home, psychiatric ward, or hospital. And that's where the Patch Adams side. I always tell people, if you take Patch Adams, Mother Teresa, and Dalai Lama, and you shove us all together, that's the Turn a Frown Around Foundation. Patch would always bring joy to sorrow. He never claimed to, he said, I'm just a big fan on a hot day for someone. I can't change the weather, but I can bring joy to them. So he would do that. Mother Teresa, I'll talk about in a second. Ultimately, she's the queen of compassion. You know, one of the things I always loved about Mother Teresa, really, you know, in middle America, I don't even know if there is such a thing anymore, but, you know, you work 50 weeks a year, and you go to your travel agency and say, I want to go to this place, I want a nice hotel, restaurants, beachfront, whatever. Mother Teresa, she went to her travel agency and said, excuse me, where does it suck? Where's the place that no one will even go to? Sisters, we're going to Calcutta. Whew. That was her spirit, and that was mine. I always want to go where no one wants to go. If people go to this far, the psychiatric ward, but no further, I want to get over here. I just want to be, as we started TAFA, we don't use the rhetoric as much then, but we used to always say, we want to make the last first. We want to make the last first. We want to make the last first. Let's pay attention to the people that aren't getting any attention. People, you know, anyway. So I was so moved by that, and I can honestly say, you know, I just ramble on. I actually used to drive a Rambler, but anyway, and the reason I talk so much, I don't tell anybody, but I just got evicted from TA meetings, Talkaholics Anonymous. I mean, that's sad, you know, really. But so I had a moment of clarification. I figured it was time to face this thing. So I studied my family tree. Do you know where I come from? Babylon. Because that's all I ever do, is Babylon.